Hey, what's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good morning, grand rising, whatever your vibe is. I hope you're having a great day. I am here today with you guys with a artwork that I actually created in Procreate, and I actually did this one for one of my personal collection. It actually did really good online, so I just wanted to talk about this one and just show you guys a little bit of the process. As you see, I started off with a sketch. I usually like to start my sketches off in like a color. When I usually sketch on paper, I use like a cool erase pencil, and they were always in colors. I learned some of that in art school. So with this one, the concept was essentially just to do a high level fantasy. Sometimes they say it's psychedelic, like, and sometimes they'll call it art pop as well. But when I did an art show, they called it Afrofuturism, and I think that's what I'm going to lean on. And I like to do this type of theme where it's more of a future based, and it also has a spirituality aspect to it, a lot of meditation, a lot of third eye and emotion. And I wanted to use a lot of peace symbols and love. For me, in this one, the hands represented opportunity. I kind of wanted it to be like angel wings, but instead of having wings, I wanted the wings to be the hands. And kind of like how they have the angels where they're just a bunch of eyes. So I do a lot of that with this particular piece. And I wanted to feel like all the eyes were looking as if he was being judged on the hands, like, is your heart lighter than a feather? I don't know if you guys have heard about that in the ancient Egyptian text where they talk about that, but that's where I referenced that a little bit here. And I tend to have a lot of my spiritual beings tend to be very big, very celestial, almost cosmic horror-esque, if you will. But I really wanted to go with this one and make her actually quite pretty and make her quite beautiful to give her not necessarily in fear. I didn't want to emote fear or evoke the emotion of fear, rather, but I really wanted you guys to feel more optimistic and feel more drawn in and seduced by this one. I wanted you to felt like you were being safe, even though he's being judged, and seeing if he is able to enter into paradise. That's why we have the door behind him and the clouds that kind of form the circular portal in the background, and you'll see more of that when we start the color in just a moment. I like to start off a lot of my artwork kind of like how you would do an underpainting. I like to start off with the shading and try to create where I believe the lighting would go, and then try to create the mood of the painting based on the tone and the textures of the lighting and the brushes that I'm using. Right now, I'm just going in and try to make sure that I have all the lighting come from the same direction and make sure that everything feels like a plane of space rather than just a block shape. And I'm going in with some soft brushes and trying to soften some of those hard edges to also give some transitions, and as well as some hard edges, because I like a little bit of both. I like hard graphics as well as I like a little bit of the both of the mixture that I get from painting. So I do a little bit of both here, and I believe I'm probably using a blue or a purple color for the shading that I normally use, and it looks like it may be on a multiply layer, but sometimes I'll also use a hard light layer because I really like how the hard light does. Like, sometimes you can see a lot of the color once you actually put the actual local color on top. And right there, you just see me going in and adding a little bit of the blush to this one. I always like to add blush. I feel like blush just adds a little hint of life to each artwork, because there's always blush and blood underneath all of our skin. And then now that we're starting colors, I really like to start with colors that are usually complementary and also contrasting. Purples and pinks tend to go really well, but I don't always like to use the most saturated version of the colors. If anything, I prefer to use a more muted version. That way I can add in my highlights that I like to use, and I really like to add in the extra textures and tones to make things pop. Things only pop if you have contrast, so you need just as much light as you need shadow. So with this one, there was a lot of purples, a lot of pinks, a little bit of blues, and just some hints of orange and turquoise just for pops of colors. As you'll see, certain pops, if you look around, you'll see hints of cyan, you'll see hints of this more golden color, and then you see a little bit of this really bright purple, probably like a lavender or like a lilac, and then a really bright magenta. And I just try to throw those in just throughout, just to sprinkle in a pop of color, just so you can get a little bit of the vibe. And then I wanted to have the spaceman in her hand, which would essentially be like the human in the figure. And I wanted the figure to stand out but also blend in. So with them being placed against a lot of purples and blues, I went with more of a golden color. But like I said before, it's not about choosing the brightest color, because he still kind of hides in the background. He's still there, but he's not there. I use a more gold muted color. That way he could focus in there and kind of live in the background and just live inside of the universe that we're creating here. But that pretty much wraps up this one. Like I said, I appreciate you guys so much for supporting. I wanted to show you guys a bit of my digital process, but make sure you guys stay tuned for the next artwork coming pretty soon. Love you guys. Barbados Select out. Like and subscribe.